Get your tuxedos ready, folks. It is NHL Awards night, and we have two Predators who could bring home some pieces of hardware at the end of the night. We'll talk about whether we think Juuse Saros can win the Vezina and whether Roman Josi has a chance at the Norris and the Ted Lindsay. Plus, wild game in the Stanley Cup Finals last night. We'll break that down and give our predictions for the rest of the NHL Awards coming up today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
It's awards night, Ann.
Hallelujah. It's a big night. I love the visual of getting out your tux and, getting gussied up. I may do that.
I don't have a red carpet, but I have a purple line of Post-it notes. So we're going to pretend this is us waltzing down
the red carpet. Yeah,
the red carpet. There's the visual right there.
I love it.
Yeah, so this is a night that could be very fruitful for Predators fans. We have two players nominated for 3 awards.
Yes.
Of course, as anybody in the Colorado Avalanche fan board will tell you, Roman Josi is nominated for the Norris Trophy alongside the person they think should win. And I really wish we could air your description of Cale Makar, but I think it is too.
I'm sure he's lovely. Look, great player, fantastic.
Yeah, if
100% deserves this nomination. I described it like that.
That's not how you described it. We're gonna pretend that's how you described it.
That's exactly what I said.
Yes. We also have Roman Josi nominated for the Ted Lindsay Award.
Yes.
In the most basic of terms, is basically the MVP as decided by the players, and not necessarily the writers. So there is, So Roman Josi being nominated for that is kind of a big deal because it kind of shows you how much people value him. And then, of course, Juuse Saros, Vesna nominated, very well deserved. Probably should have gotten at least a top 4 last year, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But, hey, making up for it this year.
Yeah. Well, he's only 5'11".
Yeah, the height disqualifies you.
The height thing.
And he's knocks you down the draft board, knocks you down the goalie value board, and probably will knock you down the Vezina board.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go through some of these and make the official prediction, shall we? Let's start with the Vezina.
Okay.
Juuse Saros with the Nashville Predators. He is going against Jacob Markstrom from the Calgary Flames. And the guy probably considered the frontrunner, Igor Shesterkin from the New York Rangers. Not a great feeling for Juuse this year, Ann.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think he fits in when the final voting comes out?
This is a really interesting one for me in the fact that while everybody here in Nashville knew how good Juuse Saros was, I think it caught a lot of the league maybe by surprise. And I think part of that is why he ended up with the nomination. In this particular situation, I feel like you said there is a front runner, Igor Shesterkin. And I think that he is probably so far and away the Vesna winner that, I think Saros should come in second, but Markstrom could come in third. But I think this is a really big deal for Juuse Saros. People always say, I'm just, honored to be nominated. And sometimes that's bunk. And sometimes they probably mean it. This is one where I think Juuse Saros really needs to receive what a nomination for the Vezina means for him. Especially this is his first season, 100%. No Daddy Rene there. And what he's been able to do in net for the Predators, I mean, this is somebody who is going to win games for Nashville. And he did that this season. Didn't get to see him in the postseason, but remember, these awards are all regular season voting. So, that shouldn't hurt him too much. I think Saros had a great year. Don't think he's going to win the Vesna, but I love that he is nominated. And I really think this is something he can build on.
Yeah, I think this award has pretty much had Shesterkin's name on it since probably February.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he's nominated for the Hart Trophy, for God's sakes, which doesn't happen a lot for goaltending.
Right.
So it's interesting to see whether Saros, obviously, if that's both of our predictions, is Shesterkin wins. It's interesting to see where Saros is going to come in, because remember, this is kind of the only award of the bunch that's not awarded by writers. It's awarded by the general managers. And they, of course, we kind of joke about, the term hockey men, or like, oh, the eye test or whatever, and kind of joke about that with general managers. But they might look at the situation with a little bit different of a lens, and it's kind of interesting to see which way they go. Because if you're looking purely on, the bread and butter stats, I mean, Jacob Markstrom maybe had a chance to be like one of the two best goaltenders in the league this year. I mean, the guy had 9 shutouts, which is
Yes.
pretty solid, and a very solid string of numbers everywhere else. But if you're looking at value, just in
Right.
terms of, who's kind of helping your team win the most games, the eye test might go to Juuse Saros, because he was the reason for the Predators winning a lot of games. And in fact, the advanced stats back that up. I think even more so. I'm not sure how it wound up shaking out, but I think it was either him or Shesterkin who were like 1 and 2 about stealing games. Like nobody stole more games this year than those two. So from that end, if you're looking based on, hey, the Preds would have been a lot worse had it not been for this goaltender season. By that end, Saros should probably be number 2, right behind Igor Shesterkin, with Markstrom falling 3rd. But you can make sort of a weird debate about either way, like depending on which way you want to go.
And this is one of my big beefs, sidebar, with these NHL awards, is that they are very ambiguous in description in a lot of ways. So this is goalkeeper adjudged to be the best at his position. You can look at that a number of different ways. Statistically, you can look at it as winning games for his team. You can, it's really not a consistent thought process, evaluation process for any of these awards. The Vesna is probably the most, the one that you can sort of come to some sort of agreement on how to value it, but it's still a little bit ubiquitous there. So it's very interesting to see. And like you said, when you have general managers looking at it, they may look at this with a much different eye than, other players or hockey writers. So I think this was, overall, I think the takeaway for Juuse Saros is fantastic season as the starter. I think Nashville Predators fans and the franchise have so much confidence in him as a goaltender. I think next year may look a little bit different because they're going to be bringing in a different backup, and that may sort of change some of how much time Juuse Saros spends in net. I think this is just the beginning of how good Saros is going to be, and his name is going to be in the Vesna conversation again. I am certain of it.
Yeah, I think if the Preds get a little bit better, I think he's got a very strong chance of getting one of these Vesnas someday. It might take him a while, just like it did for Pekka Rinne after all the years. But I think if the Predators have a really good season and they're, wind up, finishing first in the division or something like that, or get close to challenging Colorado, you're going to see Saros finally win one. Ted Lindsay Award, Anne. This is the outstanding player as voted on by the NHLPA. And it's very interesting that Roman Josi finishes in the top 3 here. Of course, in the Hart, which we're going to get to in a little bit, that had Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and Igor Shesterkin. This one has Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and Roman Josi. So first off, that is a pretty damn good endorsement of Roman Josi as a player when it's his peers that are coming out. No, he is one of the 3 most valuable players in the league.
Yes, there is something about the awards that are decided on by peers because they're the ones facing them on the ice. They're the ones that understand the nuances of playing against these players a little bit better than those of us who do it by eye test and statistics. They have a real feel for these players. And for Roman Josi as a defenseman to be nominated for the Ted Lindsay, this is huge. And I love that he was nominated for this for a number of reasons, but I especially like the fact that this is very affirming of Roman Josi as not just a player on the ice, which, you know, this award is about on ice, but I think it also speaks to off ice. I think there is a whole level of respect for his play and person that kind of influences his peers in an award like this. So I think this is huge. I think the Nashville Predators fan base really needs to take a minute and appreciate what they have in Roman Josi because he's not somebody who is going to be flashy. He's not somebody who is going to draw a ton of attention to himself. But being nominated for the Ted Lindsay means that you are outstanding. And I think it can be very easy to take to sort of take for granted what the Predators have in a player like Roman Josi. This is one of the most talented players this franchise has ever seen, and he's not done yet.
Yeah. And I like this because it's, you know, the player. It's not necessarily the best defenseman, playmakers, or whatever. It's just the best player. And, you know, when you kind of break things down to the core, that's kind of what Roman Josi was this year, is he was just a hockey player. He did a lot of different things. You know, he would jump in the play. We talked about it when we kind of did his report card, how he sort of became a 4th forward out there on the ice. And, you know, credit to John Hines for kind of using him in that creative way, maybe changing his game a little bit. And I'm glad that people recognize that because, hey, I mean, like what he did from the blue line, being able to score that many points, but not just that, being the primary playmaker on a team that had 2 40-goal scores, that's nothing to sneeze at. And, you know, you talk about, I mean, think of like the context of how we talk about the Nashville Predators, where we talk about this team is still several pieces away. You know, there's holes everywhere. They're not as good as Colorado and blah, 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 blah. All this talk that's going around. And the fact that you had a defenseman score close to 100 points and have 2 40-goal scores kind of as a byproduct of that, that's pretty damn good. And that's tells me Roman Josi's pretty damn good as a player, that he was able to get the Nashville Predators, a team a lot of people think are awful, into the playoffs. I mean, for that, you know, that's something that I think he deserves massive kudos for and massive recognition. I don't think he's going to win the Ted Lindsay Award. I think that's going to go to Connor McDavid, to be quite perfectly honest. But, and you know, I think we're going to get into a different debate about Ted Lindsay versus the Hart Trophy here in a second. But 3rd place for Roman Josi in a player voted MVP award is still a pretty big deal for Nashville.
It is a huge deal for Nashville. And look, this is the first Nashville Predator who has ever been nominated for this award. So it's huge, not just for Roman Josi. This is huge for the franchise. And I think it does speak to what a complete game Roman Josi has and how the people who are playing against him on the ice value his talent. And I agree with you. Connor McDavid is going to win this award, you know, and can't 100% argue with that because who is not afraid of Connor McDavid? He's like the big bad wolf on the ice. But Roman Josi being nominated for the Ted Lindsay, this is huge. And again, one of those situations where you really need to appreciate the fact that his peers think he is one of the top 3 players they face.
Well, the other award Yossi is nominated for, one that we've been debating for several months now, is the Norris. Let's dive into how we think that one is going to shake out in just a second. But first, today's show brought to you by Built Bar. And you know how we're always talking about Built Bar coming out with new amazing flavors? This time they've outdone themselves with their new mud pie flavor. Anna and I have both tried it. It is fantastic,
It's incredible.
Despite both of us laughing at the name for the first time that we read this. If you're not sure what mud pie tastes like, think about this. If you're a chocolate fan, gotta sit down because it is rich whipped cream, chocolate mousse, all smothered in 100% real chocolate, topped with cookies and cream crumble. You gotta try it as soon as possible because supplies are only available for a limited time and they're selling out fast. So you need to visit built.com to taste the deliciousness for yourself. Reminder here, this isn't a candy bar. This is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Mud pie is packed with 16 grams of collagen protein, only 150 calories, and only 8 grams of sugar. That's right. It is a healthy treat disguised as, well, no, I guess it would be disguised as a healthy treat. I don't know. Just try it, people.
It's so good.
It's so good. This is my first show of the week, and I'm tired, so I can't read. But trust us, Built Bar, they've got it. They've got it covered. You're gonna love it. They come available in both Built Bar and Built Bar Puff form. So whether you need a snack for your workout or a late night snack, all you need to do is try Built Bar Mud Pie. Go to built.com right now and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Ugh, I'm so tired, Ann.
That's all right.
The Norris Trophy. Yeah. This is the one that we have been debating for months now. The ones that we have been in several little online spats about with a team located to our west. And so tonight the debate finally gets settled. It seems like it's going to be either Roman Josi or Cale Makar.
God bless Victor Hedman.
Although it would be the funniest thing if after this debate, Victor Hedman just goes up there and swipes it. And it's like, yeah, he won.
This is how a parent would settle this. If you have 2 of them squabbling over a toy, you take the toy and you give it to the third kid. So Victor Hedman, take the Norris, and everybody just stop squawking.
Yeah, he just skips away back to Amalie Arena for Game 4. I mean, this is the Yossi Makar debate, and we've talked about this before. It's hard to debate because there's such different nuances of their game. They're not the same player.
Yes.
They haven't been in the same situation this year, and you can make a very strong case for either one depending on what evidence you kind of pick and choose. The thing is, whoever wins, it's not going to be controversial in my mind. There's going to be people that make it controversial. There's people that's like, so-and-so was absolutely robbed, blah, 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 blah. If either player gets it, I think they very well deserve it, and they have sort of argument to back it up. I just think for me, Anne, it's got to be Roman Josi for me. And I know I'm looking at this through the Homer lens, but, when you look at what he's done this year, and I know people are saying, oh, well, this is a defensive award. It's not the best player. It's the best defenseman, blah, blah, blah. But you look at Roman Josi's body of work. I mean, from being the primary offensive guy from the blue line, pretty much single-handedly willing his team to the postseason and spurring this whole offensive renaissance, there's something to be said for that. And, a lot of people are pointing about, well, Makar's better defensively. Yeah, but Yossi's no slouch. I mean, we've seen him make
Right.
a lot of really good defensive plays from the blue line this year.
Hmm.
And you also have to put in context that, he wasn't the shutdown guy he was 2 years ago because the Predators changed his role. He jumped into the play more often. He played
Hmm.
25 minutes kind of as like the main precipitator of offense.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah. So, I mean, for me, there's no blueprint really for what a good defenseman looks like. You just kind of have to go with their seasons. And to
Yeah.
me, Roman Josi had the better season under, I guess, more strong circumstances. I'm not sure the best way to explain that, but I feel like, the circumstances he had in Nashville versus the circumstances Makar had in Colorado really help Yossi in this case.
Hmm. And so much of this, like you say, is how do you look at it? And I go back to, could you all please be a little more specific when you
Yeah.
describe these? Because it's, the greatest all around ability in the position. Well, when you look at all around ability, are you talking offense, defense, or are you talking all around ability in just the defensive position? And I think you can look at that both ways. But I agree with you, and I am going to go on record, heaven help me, is saying I believe Roman Josi should win this award. And again, you can say, Homer glasses, and I would not squawk if Cale Makar won because like
No.
you said, I think you can 100% make an argument for Cale Makar for this award as well. God bless Victor Hedman. He's so nice. But I think when you look at what Roman Josi has done, this has been an historic season for Roman Josi. Historic season. Only 6 defensemen in the last 50 years have had more points in a single season than Roman Josi, who had 96 points. And, you're talking about defensemen, he's hanging out in the defenseman class with people like Bobby Orr and Phil Housley and Paul
Ray
Coffey, like
Bork.
Ray Bork. I mean, this is the caliber of play that Roman Josi produced this season. And I think it's really difficult to look at somebody who is being compared to all-time greats and say, your season is comparable to these greats, but we're going to give it to the other guy
Yeah.
who also, and again, don't come at me. Cale Makar has had a phenomenal season. Cale Makar is an incredible defenseman, and I would not squawk if he won this. I just think when you look at the historic nature of Roman Josi's season, it's very difficult to say you did all of that, but we're giving it to the other guy. And, I think Yossi comes home tonight with the Norris, his second. It would be amazing.
We've talked about it a bunch,
Mhm.
about, a lot of the arguments that you could make for Roman Josi winning in 2020 when he beat John Carlson. You can
Mhm.
make for Cale Makar to beat Roman
Yeah.
Josi this year. So I get it. I
Mhm.
think to me, it's not necessarily the pro Makar talk that I think has bothered me. Because again, I
Mhm.
totally agree that,
Oh,
you know, if,
yeah.
if Cale Makar wins, I'll sit there and be like, I get it. I completely
Yep.
get it. I think it's this sort of weird thing to try to discredit Roman Josi this season. And we've seen a lot of it from writers from everywhere to bloggers to
Mhm.
people that actually write for, sort of major things. There's this big thing, not to try to lift Makar up, but to try to keep Roman Josi down and almost make it as like the season he's having isn't that impressive at all. And that to me is what kind of bothers me. And,
Yes.
I think we kind of know the people that I'm referencing, um, who I think for, based on what has come out since then, for some whatever reason, don't like the Nashville Predators,
Mhm.
based on some of the things they've published, especially before and after the Av series.
Yeah.
But, shut up and enjoy it. enjoy what Roman Jossi's been able to do this year. Don't try to go into the intricacies of the game and be like, oh, well, he's actually worse than, Devon Tays and Dougie Hamilton this year and Jacob Dickren. Like, just enjoy what Roman Josi has been able to do. Don't try to break down all the nuances and try to be like, the actually guy. Just enjoy the season Roman Yossi's been having. And hey, again, like if Cale Makar wins, absolutely 100% get it. I won't disagree.
No.
But
when Roman Josi does, we will celebrate because he has had an incredible season. And, I agree with you. Stop discrediting what he's been able to do. Is he, your old-fashioned prototypical blue liner? No. And his value to this team is huge. So, I'm with you. Let's not squawk. Let's just give it to Roman Josi.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens. Of course, the NHL Awards are tonight, and we're definitely going to have a lot to talk about on tomorrow's show, regardless of whether or not Roman Josi wins. So, Anne, let's get to the rest of the awards, shall we?
Okay. We shall.
Let's do it. The Calder Trophy is the one.
Yes.
Yet. Of course, this was the one that everybody thought Tanner Jeannot should have gotten on there, although his past 2 months of the season probably wrecked any chance of that. We have old man Michael Bunting from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Trevor Zegras from the Anaheim Ducks, and Mo Seider from the Detroit Red Wings. How do you see this one shaking out, Anne?
I think this is such an interesting mix for the Calder, and it has generated a ton of conversation, especially, like you said, regarding old man Michael Bunting, who could be my son. So tread lightly, all of you people. So he is not that old, but he's 26 years old, but he still meets the criteria for a rookie season. And all of these players really have a good case, I think, for being in this conversation. I think that Trevor Zegras is going to win the Calder tonight for a couple of reasons. First of all, I do think that his play is great. I also think that his play has been notable in style and pizzazz in a way that maybe Mo Seider and Michael Bunting's hasn't been. So I think that Trevor Zegras is going to win. Now, I know he has caused a lot of squawk in the NHL for quote unquote hot dogging and all of that. But I really think he brings just an energy and a style of play and success at his style of play in a way that is going to earn him the Calder tonight. I will say this, for pure entertainment value, I would go with Mo Seider because he does a really fun show called The Mojo Show with Joe Valeno, and it is hilarious. If you all have a chance, check it out because it is the greatest. It is the greatest hockey thing I've seen in a really long time.
Those are my beloved Detroit children right there.
Oh gosh, you raised them right. They're hilarious.
Yeah. I think Seider is going to wind up winning.
Do you?
Just because I think of what he's sort of meant for the Red Wings this year. It's very hard to find a surefire number one defenseman and have a surefire number one defenseman play like a surefire number one defenseman. And Mo Seider has done that this year at 20 years old. Like
that's incredible
how good he's been this fast in his rookie year. He does it all. He's their main penalty killer. He's kind of their main point guy on the power play. He plays big minutes, led the Red Wings in minutes this year. And again, he's doing all that as a rookie. And it's not often you can kind of see a person take on that much responsibility that early and do it as well as Seider's done this year. With all due respect to, Trevor Zegras, but I think that Seider has done more for the Red Wings that Zegras has done for the Ducks.
I can see that argument.
That's my thing. Michael Bunting,
bless.
Good season. Credit to him for scoring, but if he's not on a line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, that doesn't happen. If you put me on a line,
I'm thinking the same thing.
I would be a Calder Trophy nominee.
Yes.
And
I would too, and I can't skate backwards. So
yeah.
there's that.
Well, you don't have to. They're always forechecking. So
There you go. I'd be set.
All right. Hart Trophy. Most
Hart Trophy.
valuable player. We got Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and Igor Shesterkin.
Love that
How
one.
do you think this one's going, Ann?
You know what? I will say that I love, my heart says Igor Shesterkin. I love that he was nominated for the Hart. I know that, goalies don't necessarily get a lot of consideration every year for the Hart Trophy, but I love Igor Shesterkin for this one. Do I think he's going to win? Probably no. I think it will be Connor McDavid because he is Connor McDavid. But my argument to that is he is Connor McDavid with a side of Leon Draisaitl. And I feel like Igor Shesterkin really, he was the cheese that stood alone. And so much of the Rangers' success fell on Shesterkin. So my heart says Igor Shesterkin's going to win the Hart. My mind says Connor McDavid will win it. How about you?
I talked about this earlier when I said I thought Connor McDavid was going to win the Ted Lindsay Award as the MVP is voted on by the players. I think voted on by the writers. I think Austin Matthews.
Really?
Okay. And it's a little bit different because I think the players, the ones that have to play against Connor McDavid,
raw fear.
Yeah, pretty much that he's probably the best player in the league right now. I think the people that watch the game, watch all the games and kind of take a step back, I think there's going to be a little bit of bias towards Austin Matthews in that regard, especially because Austin Matthews' defensive game this year has kind of taken a step forward. And I think people are going to kind of use that as an excuse to, maybe propel him into that stratosphere. I personally thought, I would have liked to see Jonathan Huberdeau as a finalist.
Could totally see that. Yep.
I don't, see how that's going to come out. So I do think Austin Matthews beats McDavid here in the Hart. And I think McDavid wins the Ted Lindsay Award. Here's an interesting topic that I've seen discussed a lot. So clearly Connor McDavid has been the league's best player for probably, other than that year he was hurt and Leon Draisaitl took over, the past 5 years. But it always seems like somebody else winds up winning the Hart. Do you think this is kind of a case of people are just bored with voting McDavid every year, so they try to find like some other person to step up and be like the MVP for that year, just to kind of reward somebody else?
Yeah, I think there is an element of Connor McDavid is the Susan Lucci of the daytime awards, the daytime Emmys, because he is always going to be nominated for this, and rightly so. Connor McDavid is the best, and I think he's the best hockey player that we're going to see in this kind of time period in hockey. I do. But I also think, I agree with you. I think there is an element of, okay, yeah, we all know he's really great. Let's give it to somebody else. And he may end up, with 17 nominations and only wins one, like Susan Lucci.
Oh, he's got 2.
His heart.
He's got 2, but still.
Okay. Well, yeah, he's not going to win every time.
He should have 4.
Yeah. And there isn't, I wonder about that. Like, do they go, okay, yeah, we know it's Connor McDavid again, but let's look at who is the fresh face, who compares to him, all of a sudden he goes from being the nominee to the standard. And yeah, I wonder about that. I wonder about the thought process. I really wish that everybody who voted had to write down their reasons so I could read through them.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting to see, but that's my pick. And we had Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals last night, and the Tampa Bay Lightning have made the statement, hey, we're back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. You best not write us off.
They did. And it was a good thing because Game 2 was so dominant by the Colorado Avalanche. I don't know that I have ever seen 60 minutes of better executed hockey from any hockey team. just phenomenal game. And Tampa Bay had to come back in game 3 and with an answer. And I think that they did a great job with that. And remember, Tampa Bay, this is a team that was down 2-0, previously in these playoffs and came back to win it. So this is not a team you can count out. I think Colorado, this is an interesting position for them because suddenly now in the Stanley Cup final, they're going to have to do the mental work of, okay, we got down. How do we bounce back? But I also think this is a Colorado team that's not just great on the ice. I think they're very mentally tough. And I still think that Colorado could steal one in Tampa Bay in game 4. What do you think about this?
Yeah, for me, it was important not just that Tampa Bay won, but it's how they won, in such kind of a dominant fashion. And I know a lot of people were talking about like Darcy Kemper. Now there's a little bit of a goalie controversy for game 4 in Colorado. A lot of people think that shows should be in there, which that's going to be an interesting storyline because he's kind of been in that situation before and didn't exactly excel. I mean, they went back to Darcy Kemper before. I think it was important that Tampa Bay not only won that game, but won it how they did it, kind of putting a stamp on it. It's like, hey, look, you ran the score up on us in game 2. We can do the same thing to you.
Yes.
I think this was like kind of the first time since, towards the end of game 1, where I look and say, wow, this is actually an evenly matched series. Like, look how much firepower there's on both sides. I still think that's going to be a tall order for Tampa Bay to win 4 out of 5 games. Colorado, I think that's a tall order for anybody. But, all of a sudden, if they go into game 4 and win that as well in any fashion, and now it's 2-2, now you put a little bit more doubt into the outcome of this series. And like, as you mentioned, Colorado hasn't had to deal with a loss since like early on in the St. Louis.
Yeah.
So now, how are they going to respond to a team that's a lot better than the St. Louis Blues?
Yeah, I think it's going to be I hope that it continues for a 7-game series because I am loving this hockey, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Colorado responds. Like you said, they haven't been in this position for a little while. And they were so dominant in game 2. And really, you look at game 3, and Tampa Bay was more dominant. They really ran the table in game 3. So it's going to be interesting to see how does that balance out in game 4? What adjustments does Colorado make, and how successful are they at making those adjustments in game 4? I just think this is just really great hockey. I am loving this series.
Yeah, it's fun. It is fun. I think that's one of those things where last night was the first one where it's like, this is the heavyweight fight it should be.
Yes.
So definitely excited to see what comes for the rest of the series. And we can talk about that tomorrow when we're gearing up for game 4. Until then, Anne, where can the people find your work online?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
I'm Nick Morgan. You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. While you're there, follow the podcast on Twitter at LO_Predators. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. Helps the algorithm, helps us get the show out to more Preds fans like yourself. That's going to do it for us today on the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with a new episode. See ya.